Hello everyone, I'm Steve from Valhartv, and today I'll be reviewing Hawkeye Episode 6. So I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. This show was designed to set up Kate Bishop, to introduce us to Kate Bishop as the new Hawkeye. That's all this show was for. Excuse me. It had no real plot in the overall MCU universe. This show was mediocre to okay at best. I thought last episode was actually pretty decent. This episode is okay. Not the greatest season finale that I've seen, but it's not the worst either. So this episode is basically sets up the finale and introduces us to the Kingpin, which is Vincent D. I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm not even going to try. But he's the Kingpin from Netflix's Daredevil. So I thought that was really cool, bringing him in as the actual Kingpin for any of the movies. That was great. The ending of this, though, where they show him and Maya, gonna tell you right now, I already know what happens. They wouldn't bring him in, and all the other characters, if they weren't really going to keep him around. Clint's going to be around and stuff to help Kate out. That's all this show was designed for, was to introduce her, set her character up, get us to try to get us to like her. And it didn't really work because there was really no good story for her. Like, all the plot points in this were basically super convenient just to keep the plot moving along. Like in episode 2, she goes to a party with her mom and her mom's fiance, but she's dressed like a guy. She's in a suit. And the only reason why they had her in a suit was because it was convenient. She didn't know she was going to go down to a basement, but as soon as she started to, she's like, oh, I look like when I'm a waiter. Everybody keeps telling me I'm a waiter, so I'm going to grab a tray and I'm going to go down and I'm going to be a waiter. Only reason. I was like, you couldn't have done it better. She couldn't have knocked out one of the other servers, took the clothes, went down, did her thing. I'm like, really? That would have been way cooler than doing this. Like, there were points in this, especially with the mystery, that they could have ran with that would have been so much better. And if this was like 8 episodes long, we could have had a way better mystery that ended up leading us to the Kingpin and not have to have all this side plot, all these contrived sequences where we have Clint just running around for absolutely no reason trying to get the Ronin suit from LARPers and all this other stuff. The LARPers really, honestly, in my opinion, were only brought in to make these suits right here. To make those suits, and that was it. They had a small part to play in this episode, especially when they put on their gear and they start getting people to listen to them and getting them out of the building, to evacuate because the tracksuit mob was coming to get them. So there were some good points in this as well. There was a fight scene again with Kingpin. I thought was actually kind of cool. There was the Yelena and Kate fight sequence that was a little goofy, but it was kind of meant to be because they were kind of liking each other, so they were just going back and forth almost playfully because Yelena didn't want to hurt Kate. She wasn't there for him. She was there for Clint. And we also get Kate and Kingpin fight scene. And she actually goes kind of toe-to-toe with him. And I feel like he held back. I really do think he held back because there was just no way like she could have. Because even Clint was like, not many people walk away from a fight with Kingpin. Because he is pretty badass, And even in the comic books and even in the video games with Spider-Man, he is a badass. And I was like, dude, really? I'm like, this dude's kind of a badass in this episode too, but not as much as Kate. And Kate was doing so many tricks off, like with Clint in this one scene where they are surrounded by the tracksuit mob on ice skating rink. And she's like, she even jumps off her bow at one point. And I was like, where was this in the beginning of the season? You know, it's not like she was learning this as she was going along, because we've seen the montage at the beginning where she literally learned all this stuff. And now all of a sudden she's like, flipping off her bow and not breaking it, and like taking dudes down and stuff, and being as good as Clint. And I was like, really? I was like, man, you could have had her made a couple of bad shots, you know, because she's still trying to learn and she's still trying to be as good as Clint, and Clint really hasn't been able to train her, you know. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, you know, just it's furthering the plot. She's good, you know. Now we know that she's super good. And what really got me about this episode, it was the writing too. The writing, and like the writing overall wasn't very good for this entire season. You know, yes, we know that this show was only put together to introduce us to Kate Bishop. But again, we needed a lot more. You know, we needed to see her be able to start being trained to become the best, like Clint. We didn't get that. We get told things. You know, Kate's mom trying to walk away from Kingpin because she's working with him because of a debt, and then she paid the debt off, but she's still working with the guy. So we get all these different plot points. We get Maya and the Kingpin talking at the end. And we end this episode with Clint and Kate going to his place on Christmas Day. So they made it by Christmas. Again, if it wasn't for the MacGuffins that they kept leaving, they wouldn't have, you know. And this probably shouldn't have been done around Christmas time because they had only 5 days. Would have been a lot better with more. But overall, I'd give this episode a 6 out of 10. It wasn't a bad episode, but it wasn't a good episode either. I was actually quite disappointed with the way everything went, especially towards the end with Kingpin. And then the mid-credit scene is Steve Rogers the Musical. And I was like, oh, really? And I fast-forwarded, and that's all it was. So I was like, wow, that's super disappointing. But leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought about this. If you guys like what I do, hit the like button and subscribe. Take care for now, everyone.